I'm Sarah Mitchell, 34, a marketing executive living in Santa Monica, and I always thought I understood what family loyalty meant. This morning, standing in my parents' sunlit kitchen, I was holding my sister's wedding invitation with both hands, feeling the thick cardstock between my fingers like something precious. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with the salty breeze wafting in from the Pacific, and for a moment, everything felt right. "Mom," I said, my voice bubbling with excitement. "I can't believe it's finally tomorrow. I've got my dress ready, and my speech. It's perfect." She froze mid-stir, her spoon clattering against her mug. "Sarah," she said softly, eyes darting toward the counter. "The wedding was last week." Her words hung there, sharp and unbelievable. My fingers went numb, and the invitation slipped from my hand, smacking against the countertop. I picked it up again, staring at the golden date glimmering in the light. Saturday, September 14. That was tomorrow. My throat tightened. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, my voice cracking. My mother didn't look at me. "There was a mistake," she murmured. Too quickly. "We sent the wrong one." Her tone was thin, rehearsed. From the living room, my father's voice drifted in. Calm, but dismissive. "Let's not start drama, Sarah." I turned toward him, disbelief coursing through me. "You knew?" His silence was answer enough. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound as my heart pounded against my ribs. I could feel it then. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was intentional. They had excluded me. My family, my parents, my little sister Lily had planned an entire wedding behind my back and sent me a fake invitation to keep me away. A wave of nausea rolled through me, followed by a cold, burning anger. I'd spent years being their safety net. Paying Lily's debts when her boutique nearly collapsed, covering my parents' roof repairs when they couldn't afford it, writing checks they never mentioned again. I thought generosity was love. I was wrong. I left before my voice could break, stepping outside into the ocean breeze. The sunlight felt harsh, stabbing at my eyes. Back home, I sat at my kitchen island, the invitation glinting beneath the pendant lamp like an accusation. I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop, my mind spinning. Out of sheer disbelief, I typed into Reddit's search bar, "AITA for not inviting my sister to my wedding because she always steals the spotlight?" The top post had more than 40,000 upvotes. The story sounded hauntingly familiar. A bride insecure about her sister's career, her confidence, her independence. The comments were ruthless. "You didn't want peace. You wanted control. Jealousy isn't love." Reading them, I felt a strange mix of vindication and despair. Maybe my family's cruelty wasn't unique, it was just textbook toxicity. I remembered reading that 40% of adults support their families financially, according to a Pew Research study, but few ever receive genuine appreciation. Instead, people like me burn out, drained emotionally and financially by those we love most. I clicked over to my messages, scrolling past old texts from Lily. "Can you spot me $1,500? I'll pay you back soon. Mom said you wouldn't mind covering the deposit." I used to reply with a simple, "Of course." Now those words made my stomach twist. My phone buzzed again. A message from my cousin Melissa. "Hey, I need to tell you something about the wedding. Call me when you're alone." I stared at the text, my heart thudding. Melissa had always been close to Lily, closer than she ever was to me. Why would she suddenly reach out now? The air in my apartment felt heavy, pressing against my chest as I picked up the invitation one more time. Its fancy lettering mocked me, shimmering under the soft light like a cruel joke. Somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't just about jealousy. It was about control, resentment, and years of taking without giving back. My family had crossed a line they could never uncross. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was ready to uncover every lie they'd buried. When Melissa's message popped up on my screen, I hesitated for a full minute before calling her. The line crackled, and she answered in a whisper. "Sarah, I shouldn't be telling you this, but Emily told everyone you didn't want to come. She said you were too busy with work to attend." My mouth went dry. "That's a lie," I said, my voice shaking. She sent me the wrong date. Melissa exhaled, nervous. I know. Your parents went along with it because they didn't want a scene. Emily said you'd make her look bad. I hung up before she could say more, my pulse hammering in my ears. That night, I couldn't sleep. The waves outside my apartment crashed rhythmically against the shore, a cruel reminder of how far I'd drifted from the family I once protected. My mind kept flashing back to every time Emily had called me in tears. There was one night in particular, almost a year ago, when the phone rang past midnight. Her voice was trembling. Sarah, please, my business is collapsing. I just need $5,000 to keep the lease. I swear I'll pay you back. I'd been exhausted after a 12-hour client pitch, but I opened my laptop and wired the money anyway. I can still remember the faint hum of the computer fan and the way my reflection looked on the screen, tired but hopeful. You're saving me, Emily had whispered, but now I saw it clearly. I wasn't saving her. I was enabling her. Weeks after that call, she'd posted a photo on Instagram, champagne in hand, new designer shoes, captioned, "Working hard, rewarding harder." I'd convinced myself it was an old picture, but sitting in my kitchen now, staring at that same post, I felt a different kind of betrayal wrapped in humiliation. I opened my laptop again and typed, "Toxic family advice site." The first result was an article on Brightside. Me titled, "You Don't Owe Your Family Financial Rescue." It said, "Love without boundaries becomes servitude." I reread that line over and over until the words blurred. I scrolled through Reddit next, finally creating an anonymous post. I paid my sister's debts, helped my parents fix their home, and they still excluded me from a family wedding. AITA for cutting them off. I didn't expect anyone to respond, but within hours, hundreds of comments appeared. People wrote, "They used you because you let them. Stop funding your own mistreatment." One comment stood out, "You'll never get closure from people who benefit from your confusion." 2 days later, I drove to my parents' house. The coastal road shimmered under the midday sun, and by the time I reached their driveway, my stomach was tight with dread. Karen opened the door first. She looked startled, one hand clutching a dish rag. "Sarah, you should have called." "Would you have answered?" I said. Behind her, I could see Emily in the living room, lounging in a silk robe, scrolling through her phone. "Oh look," she said without looking up. "The ghost of family past." I stepped inside, my heels clicking against the hardwood. "Why did you lie?" My father, Tom, emerged from the hallway, his expression weary. "This isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," I snapped. Emily finally looked at me, smirking. "You're overreacting. We thought you'd make everything about you." "Like always." I laughed. A harsh, humorless sound. "About me? You took my money, my time, my trust, and then you erased me from your wedding?" Emily stood, crossing her arms. "You offered that money. Don't act like a victim now." The words hit like a slap. My mother's voice trembled. "Sarah, please, let's just move on. Emily's married now. It's a new start for all of us." I turned to her, my anger boiling over. "A new start built on lies? You watched her use me, and you helped." My father's face hardened. "We did what was best to keep peace in the family." "Peace?" I said. "You call deception peace?" Emily laughed suddenly, a sharp, mocking sound. "God, you're dramatic. You think writing checks makes you a martyr?" She stepped closer, her perfume sickly sweet. "Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with control, we wouldn't have had to shut you out." For a second, I couldn't breathe. "Control?" I whispered. "You used my credit cards, my savings, my time. I paid for your peace." My mother reached for me, her hands trembling. "Sarah, please, don't do this." I pulled back. The room smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner, too clean, too staged, like the whole house was pretending to be something it wasn't. I looked at Emily's wrist and noticed a new watch glinting under the light. I recognized it instantly. "That's the Cartier I bought for Dad's retirement," I said slowly. She froze, then shrugged. "He said I could have it." My stomach dropped. I turned toward my father, who couldn't meet my eyes. "You let her sell my gift?" I whispered. He sighed, avoiding the question. Something inside me cracked, then not the sharp kind of pain, but the dull realization that I'd been loving ghosts, not people. The conversation spiraled. Emily accused me of being jealous. My mother wept. My father left the room. Through it all, I stayed still, watching them unravel. I realized then that I'd been financing their illusion of stability for years. Every favor had become their entitlement. Every act of love, a debt unpaid. "You know what's funny?" I said quietly. "I used to think helping you made me a good person. Now I see it just made me convenient." Emily rolled her eyes. "You're unbelievable." "No," I said, my voice steady. "I'm done." I turned toward the door, my hand already on my bag when she spoke again. "Good luck without us, Sarah. You'll come crawling back." I smiled faintly. "Maybe, but when I do, you'll wish you'd been honest." Outside, the sun had started to sink, painting the sky in streaks of orange and gold. My heart was racing, but beneath the chaos was a strange calm. As I drove home, my phone buzzed again this time, an email from my accountant. Subject: Annual Trust Update. I stared at it for a moment, remembering the investment account I'd opened 5 years ago under my own name, one my family didn't know existed. I'd built it quietly, funding it piece by piece, with bonuses and freelance projects, my safety net, my escape plan. For the first time, I saw its true purpose. Maybe Melissa was right. There was more they weren't telling me. But now, I had something they didn't expect. Something I could use. I wasn't powerless anymore. The next time I saw my family, I wouldn't just confront them. I'd make them face everything they'd taken from me and everything they'd lost. The next morning, I sat in my office overlooking the gray stretch of Santa Monica Pier, the hum of the city filtering through the glass. My accountant's email had led me down a rabbit hole I couldn't ignore. For years, I'd contributed quietly to a family trust my father insisted was for emergencies. I never questioned it, I trusted him. But now, staring at the legal documents spread across my desk, the truth unfolded like a cruel punchline. My name wasn't just on the contributor list. It was the primary owner. The trust, valued at nearly $500,000, was registered under my social security number, not my parents'. They'd unknowingly made me the sole beneficiary. The rustle of the papers sounded like thunder in the silence of my apartment. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. For the first time in my life, the power imbalance had shifted. The people who'd used me to prop up their lives were, legally, standing on ground I owned. I spent that afternoon meeting with a financial advisor, a woman named Renee with a calm voice and sharp eyes. She looked over the documents, tapping her pen thoughtfully. "You're not alone, Sarah," she said, sliding one report toward me. "Studies from 2024 show that 1 in 5 adults experience financial exploitation by family. You've been systematically drained." Her tone was factual, but not unkind. "You have every right to reclaim what's yours." Those words echoed through me. That night, I joined an online forum for people recovering from family betrayal, sibling rivalry, financial abuse, emotional manipulation. I posted my story under a pseudonym. Sister Left Out. The replies were immediate. Strangers, sharing their stories, their anger, their healing. One message stood out. "When you stop rescuing them, you start rescuing yourself." I printed that line and pinned it above my desk. It became my mantra. I spent the next week combing through my financial records, bank transfers, Venmo receipts, old texts. Patterns emerged. Emily hadn't used my money to save her boutique at all. She'd funneled it into a joint account she shared with her fiancé, the same man who'd just posted a video of their honeymoon in Santorini, clinking glasses of champagne. My blood ran cold. I opened my old spreadsheet labeled Loans to Family and saw the total: $78,400. Every dollar I'd given was accounted for, every promise to pay it back soon, broken. By Friday, I had enough evidence to make it official. Renee helped me draft the documents to freeze the trust account temporarily, citing potential misuse of funds. When the papers arrived, crisp and heavy in their manila envelope, I held them like a weapon. I could almost hear the sound of dominoes tipping in my mind. The next step was confrontation, but this time, on my terms. I waited until Sunday afternoon, when I knew my parents would be home. The house looked the same as always. White shutters, roses in the yard, but it felt hollow now, like a stage set after the actors had gone home. Karen opened the door, her smile forced. "Sarah," she said tightly. "We weren't expecting." "I'm sure you weren't." I cut in. I stepped inside, handing her a stack of papers. "You might want to read this." Emily appeared in the hallway, barefoot, wearing another silk robe. "What's this now? Another guilt trip?" "It's notice," I said. "I froze the family trust. It's under my name, and until I decide otherwise, no one touches a cent." Her smirk faltered. "You can't do that," she snapped. "Watch me." I sat down on the couch, crossing my legs, the leather creaking beneath me. "You wanted me out of your life, remember? Consider this step one." My mother's hands trembled as she flipped through the documents. "Sarah, we need that money. The mortgage." "You mean my money?" I interrupted. "You used me for years. You don't get to plead now." Tom stepped in from the kitchen, his face pale. "You don't understand, Sarah. We were trying to protect Emily's reputation." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "Her reputation? She lied to me, stole from me, and used me like a wallet with a heartbeat." Emily's eyes flashed. "You're pathetic. You think freezing some stupid account makes you powerful? We'll find a way around it." I stood, closing the folder. "No, Emily, you won't. You've built your life on my generosity. Let's see how far you get without it." I walked out before she could respond, the sound of my heels echoing down the front steps. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. But that freedom came with an edge. That night, my phone buzzed an unknown number. "You think you've won?" the message read. "You don't know what you've started." My stomach tightened. I knew it was Emily. I didn't reply, but the words burned into me like a warning. Over the next few days, strange things started happening. My credit card was declined, an unauthorized attempt on my bank login, a fake Yelp review about my business ethics. Emily was retaliating. I documented everything, every call, every message, every digital smear. Renee helped me lock down my accounts and file reports. "She's desperate," she said. "You've taken away her lifeline." But even as I protected myself, part of me grieved. Late one night, I found myself scrolling through old family photos. Birthdays, beach trips, holidays where laughter came easy. I remembered Emily as a child, clutching my hand during thunderstorms. When had she turned into someone capable of this? Or had she always been? And I just refused to see it. The thought made my chest ache. Still, there was no turning back. I met again with Renee, who suggested I consider selling the La Jolla property listed under the trust. "It's technically yours," she said, adjusting her glasses. "That could give you closure and distance." The next week, I drove there. The house sat on a quiet street, the ocean shimmering beyond it. It used to be my parents' pride, the symbol of their stability. Now, it felt like justice. I signed the sale documents right there on the marble kitchen island, the pen scratching smoothly against paper. The realtor smiled. "Congratulations," she said. "You just made yourself very free." When the sale cleared, I transferred part of the funds into a new account, one Emily would never find. I donated some to a local women's financial literacy program. The rest, I kept as my clean slate. For the first time, my life was mine. No debts, no manipulation, no guilt. I started therapy, joined weekly support calls with others who'd cut ties with toxic families, and found a strange kind of peace in the shared pain. One night, as I listened to a woman from Ohio describe the moment she stopped rescuing her brother, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. A few weeks later, I received one last text from Emily. No threats this time, just a photo. The two of us, as kids, covered in sand, laughing on the beach. Beneath it, she wrote, "You really think money will save you?" I stared at the message for a long time before replying. It already did. I hit send and turned off my phone, the sound of the ocean outside my window echoing like closure. But even as I poured myself a glass of wine and let the night settle, something in me stirred. Because beneath her taunt, there had been something else, a note of fear. And I knew Emily too well to think she'd give up that easily. As I stared out over the dark waves, a thought crept in. She still had secrets, and this wasn't over. The weeks that followed felt strangely quiet, like the world had finally exhaled after years of holding its breath. I spent more time by the ocean, walking barefoot along the shore outside my Santa Monica apartment, the salt air curling through my hair as the waves whispered a kind of forgiveness I hadn't known I needed. The chaos with my family had finally slowed, no more fake accounts, no more late-night messages from Emily. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like punishment, it felt like peace. Still, some mornings, when I brewed my coffee, I'd glance at my phone, expecting another storm. It never came. One morning, I sat on my balcony with my laptop open, reading an article on Good, is titled, "Rebuilding Self-Worth After Betrayal." The line that stayed with me read, "When the people who once defined your value lose access to you, you rediscover who you were before their approval mattered." I copied it into my journal, underlined it twice, and realized that's what I had been doing all along, reclaiming my value from people who treated it like currency. My work life reflected that change too. The same week I sold the La Jolla property, a major client offered me a partnership opportunity, one I might have hesitated to accept before, fearing my family's judgment. Now, I signed the contract without hesitation. The click of the pen sounded like a small rebellion. But even victories can cast long shadows. A month later, I received an email from a colleague. "Sarah, just a heads up, someone's been sending rumors about you to our clients." Forwarding what I got, attached were screenshots of messages claiming I'd embezzled company funds and used insider information. My stomach twisted. I knew that tone, that rhythm. It was Emily. The same manipulative phrasing she used when she wanted sympathy. "I'm just trying to warn you." I could almost hear her voice, syrupy and cruel. But instead of panic, I felt something new. Clarity. I forwarded the messages to legal, attached every piece of evidence I'd collected from her previous harassment, and by the next morning, the company's cybersecurity team had traced the source back to a burner account tied to her IP address. That same day, I received a formal apology from the firm and a quiet message from my lawyer. "You have grounds for a defamation case." I didn't need revenge this time. The truth had a way of exposing itself without my help. Still, I couldn't resist one final message. I texted Emily, simply, "You should stop digging holes you can't climb out of." She didn't reply. Instead, 2 days later, I got a letter from my parents, not handwritten, but printed, signed, "Love, Mom and Dad." It was an apology wrapped in excuses. "We didn't realize how much we hurt you," it said. "Your sister regrets what happened. We hope, in time, you'll understand why we did what we did." I folded the letter neatly and tucked it into the back of my journal. Next to that good is quote. Not because I forgave them, but because I didn't need to carry it anymore. By spring, my life had shifted entirely. My apartment was brighter, maybe from the new curtains, maybe from the way light felt different when you weren't living under someone else's guilt. I redecorated the space with things that were mine alone. Framed photos from solo trips, plants I remembered to water, a small desk overlooking the ocean where I could write without interruption. On weekends, I logged into the same online support group that had helped me through the worst nights. This time, I wasn't the one seeking advice. I was the one giving it. I shared my story anonymously under the thread, "How I Took My Power Back." The responses poured in, people thanking me, telling me they were in similar situations. One woman wrote, "Reading this made me close a chapter I've been afraid to end." Another said, You reminded me that walking away is an act of love for yourself. For the first time, my pain had a purpose. Then, something unexpected happened. A producer from a podcast that focused on stories of family resilience reached out after reading my post. She wanted to feature me, my real story, my name, my voice. The idea terrified me at first, but when I stood in that small recording booth weeks later, microphone in front of me, I realized how far I'd come. I didn't need to hide behind anonymity anymore. I spoke about how love without respect turns to control, how silence can be its own kind of violence, and how reclaiming your worth isn't revenge, it's recovery. When the episode aired, messages flooded in from listeners around the world. One person wrote, "I thought I was alone until I heard you." That message stayed pinned to my heart like a medal. A few months later, I found myself back in La Jolla, not for business, but to watch the sunset from the cliffs. The house I'd sold was visible in the distance, its new owners hosting a quiet gathering on the deck. The sound of laughter drifted through the wind, and instead of bitterness, I felt gratitude. Sometimes letting go doesn't mean losing it, means making space for something better. The breeze lifted strands of my hair, carrying the scent of salt and freedom. I pulled my journal from my bag and flipped to the last page, writing, "I survived loving people who never learned how to love me back." As the sky burned gold and violet, I thought about the girl who once wired money at midnight, desperate to keep her family from falling apart. I thought about how that same girl now stood on solid ground, no longer begging to be seen. I had built a new life not out of revenge, but out of resilience. My family might never understand, but that was no longer my burden to carry. I closed my journal, breathing in the sound of waves colliding below. In that moment, I knew the story was mine again. And if you're listening right now, wondering if you'll ever find peace after being betrayed by the people you loved most, this is your sign that you will. You don't need their apology to move forward. You just need to choose yourself. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't proving them wrong, it's proving to yourself that you were never broken. So, if you've ever rebuilt yourself after being torn down, I want to hear your story. Share it in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories of strength, healing, and second chances. I'm Sarah Mitchell, and this is how I took my life back.